Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next edition of Adventures in Networking. If I look weirder than usual, it's because I've been to the dentist. So the lower half of my face isn't working very well, but it's all right. We've got Kelly here. We've got professionals in Kelly and in all of our guests today. So Adventures in Networking, this is our new version of the ONLE Networking show. We want to share all the joy, all of the adventures that we've had on our networking, all of the benefits that we've got from networking. And we'd love to hear your version of it. What are your networking stories, your biggest wins, embarrassing stories? That one's good. We can have that one as well, Kelly, can't we? And also, if you've got questions for us on how to network, particularly online, we'd love to answer those as part of what we're calling the networking repair shop. So please do use the chat. We're streaming on lots of platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Kelly, they're all there.
They're all there, all the greats.
If you do post on LinkedIn, Izzy is in the background. She will copy that link across or that post because it won't come through on its own. We have to pick it up and manually move it across, just hold its hand. So there you go. So what are we talking about today? The networking repair shop. I've given it a convoluted name, 2D or 3D networking. It's this idea of networking to the room, i.e. so the people in the room or the connections of the connection. And our three special guests that we'll preview in a minute have all got particular expertise in that particular part of networking through the room. So we'll bring those guys in here. But to start, we said we'd share our journey. We need to talk about meeting at networking, Kelly, and particularly how that helped form the culture of ONLE.
Yeah,
how did we meet at networking, Kelly?
Well, I'm glad you asked, James. Just as a little reminder. Okay, so networking incredibly important to both James and I, and we've talked about this, about going to networking for different reasons. But we met at networking, a lovely little group called Poddy. We've still got a few people that are members of ONLE that we know there. In fact, one joined only yesterday, Ben Holloway. He was part of our journey, wasn't he, as well? So, oh gosh, that was getting on for 10 years ago this year. And it was one of those moments, wasn't it, where I will argue that I noticed James a lot before he noticed me, but we won't have that argument live on a live stream. There we go. But yeah, we met at networking. We had a one-to-one. We collaborated on some work, and the rest is history, as they say, isn't it?
Like an awful euphemism.
It's not. It's not. The one-to-one went on a lot longer than it probably needed to, didn't it? And then you invited me for lunch, and I think at that point we realised this is probably a little bit more than a generic one-to-one. This is going to go a bit further. And now we're married. 10 years later, we have a network. But the reason for telling you that is it shows how important networking is to us. It hasn't just brought so much to our business. It's brought so much to us personally. And I do have an embarrassing side to that story, don't I? Because the network that we met at, we're trying to launch a second pod, being that it was Poddy. And I can remember going to the main pod that James was a member of and saying, oh, come and join the second pod. You know, we're trying to get bigger numbers than here. And James came along to visit, and I took him to the coffee station to make him a coffee, and then immediately let the coffee cup overflow with coffee because I wasn't paying attention. I was trying to impress him, and it just went everywhere and made myself look a complete idiot. But I think I managed to pull it back because we ended up getting married. So there we go.
It worked out. Culture,
it worked.
Though. We wanted to build the network that we wanted to go to. Say about that a little bit, because that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people that know us will know this, but if you don't, I very much went networking to gain business. I didn't need any more friends. I was in a good place. So, you know, it was fine. I didn't need any of that stuff. It wasn't until I went networking that I realised that I probably wasn't in as good a place as I thought I could have been. James went for other reasons. He went to help. He had poor mental health at that stage, bad relationship, and he went to get out of the house and to meet some nice people and just to get away from all of that stuff. And if business came as a result of it, which it did, then that was a huge bonus. So I think when we met, we did come at networking from very different places. For me, James was absolutely right. You know, if I look at what we've created within ONLE, it is exactly what we wanted to both achieve from networking. So we wanted a place where you could feel comfortable, where you weren't excluded. Being online and that journey from going in person to online meant that we didn't exclude people because of personal circumstances. We've built the business. We have a disabled daughter that we run the business around, so that helps us as a family as well. So when you're thinking about the bigger picture of who we wanted to welcome into the community and what we wanted to achieve, it was very much about extracting the rules that didn't benefit the member. There's lots of networks out there that have lots and lots of rules. Who do they benefit? They benefit the network and the owner of the network. They don't necessarily benefit the members of the network. So we have a structure, of course we do, but we recognise that we are adults, and innocent until proven guilty, I guess, is the thing, isn't it, with that? So we treat you like adults. We expect you to do the right thing. If you don't, we have a conversation with you about it. But generally, people are good people and they want to get involved and they want to be part of it. So for us, the culture very much from day one was about having an inclusive space where nobody felt lonely, nobody felt like an outsider. You could have a comfortable environment where you could share your story, be yourself, even in the bad days, and you could look for business opportunities as a result of it. Along the way,
always that bit in the middle, wasn't it? Can we have the, you know, the really formal, results-driven networking is kind of one end of the scale, and then the other end of the scale, it can become a glorified coffee morning. Can we build something that sits somewhere in the middle that gives you the best of both worlds? And that was very much what we set out to do. So there you go. There's a little glimpse into our story. We'll tell you about our wedding, because we were networking on our wedding day in New York. We'll tell that in the next episode. But for now, I think we bring these wonderful guests in, Kelly.
Let's do it.
Can you do that and introduce them, please?
Of course, yes. let me just let them get settled. Welcome everybody. Hi Joanne, Chris, Brian. Good to have you all here. I think I'll go ladies first. Joanne, do you just want to come off mute? Tell us who you are. Just a little bit about yourself, please.
Hello, fab to be here. Love this format, love being part of this. Thank you. And I love networking. I am a business owner. My current business is called Enneagram Space, and I work with something called the Enneagram, which is a symbol that provides a framework for understanding who we are and how we can basically be our best selves in business and life through understanding our motivations and drivers of our personality. But multiple businesses over the years, worked in corporate, and when I came out of corporate, networking was a really big part of growing, I guess, that next and most fun phase of my career. So yeah, I live in Camberley in Surrey. I'm a member of ONLE Southwest London. And I started being a member of ONLE when we were meeting in person. And so it's that transition between the real life and online. And I just love how the online option gives you, the chance to meet people from all around the ONLE world.
Absolutely. That is brilliant. Thank you, Joanne. We'll come back to you because we've got a topic that you're going to talk to us about today anyway, haven't we? So we'll come back. But Chris, first of all, you're next on my screen. Tell us about you.
Hi, everyone. This is really interesting. I've never been on this kind of setup before, so fascinating. Looking forward to it. Yes, my name's Chris Mansfield. My business is Fusion, and I am a professional networker. I've been networking now. This is my 25th year of networking. I started in literally the end of 1999 when I was press ganged into going to my first BNI meeting. Wasn't told what to expect at all, but that's another story. And 25 years later, I find myself actually networking professionally on behalf of other companies. So I'm retained by a small number of carefully selected businesses, all of whom are non-conflicting. They just want a much broader reach than they can do themselves because they've got a day job. And I don't. My day job is networking. So this is what I do for a living. I joined networking, ONLE Networking, on recommendation from somebody else when I was looking for other online networking to do when I started my business back in lockdown. So who says networking online doesn't work?
Funny that, isn't it? We'll definitely dispel that myth today. And you're based where are you based?
Down in Brighton on the South Coast. I do about a 50-50 split between online and face-to-face. A lot of my face-to-face is in Brighton and the surrounding area, Gatwick, Crawley, a little bit in London, and the other rest of it is online.
Good place to be if you're doing both, for sure. Thank you, Chris. And last but by no means least, Brian, over to you.
Awesome. Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. My name is Brian Hilliard, and what I do is I show individuals how to get paid to speak or generate more paying clients from their free talks without being pushy. I've been a speaker and a coach since 2001. I've written a number of different books. One of them was called Networking Like a Pro. And for me, I think the biggest thing with networking is to be able to have an opportunity to meet, collaborate, and engage with folks. I think when someone asks me what's the difference between networking and maybe a different form of business generation, I would say relationships. I would say the connections that you made. And I would also say networking is one of the only things that I'm aware of where you can get a 2-for-1, where you can get the business and you can get the referral, or vice versa. And I think that when you take a look at other avenues of getting business, networking is clearly the key. I've been a proud ONLE member for the last couple of years now. So that's been great. I have a chance to go out to our US groups, which is awesome, in the ATL and NYC, which is Atlanta and New York, for those of you who don't speak US. And that's pretty much how it is. And I'm really looking forward to being able to spend some time with you guys. Thank you so much.
Excellent. And you're based stateside,
Oh,
aren't you,
yeah,
Brian?
I'm based in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Yeah.
There we go. There we go. So already we're proving that online networking works, because we would not, all 5 of us, be in this room if it wasn't for that sake. I'm going to come back to all 3 of you, but now you've introduced yourselves, just give you a second to think about what your first networking memory was, good or bad. Good, bad or ugly. I think we've all got one, haven't we? Mine is standing there shaking, tickly cough, grabbing the orange juice with a piece of paper like this at a BNI meeting, because I was absolutely terrified, because like you, Chris, I wasn't told what to expect, and I walked in the room and thought, OMG, what have I just let myself in for? I then ended up loving it, but I still vividly have that memory of that day. So Joanne, let me come back to you. What's yours?
Well, I would say there's a couple. The first one is I went to 9 different schools on 3 different continents. So since being a very young child, my entire childhood and school life, I felt like I was networking, because I was always the new girl showing up at a new school. So I think I was probably unusually equipped to start conversations and meet new people. So I wasn't fazed by being in the room. I ran, I guess, the equivalent of corporate networking for our clients and customers when I was in the IT industry. But when I left that industry and went and started my own business, the idea of where do I meet people? Where do I get the support? How do I do this? A friend of mine ran a small accounting firm and said, come along to this networking group with me. And I turned up in this room, and honestly, my first thought was, I mean, I look back and it's like, what I should have been thinking is get over yourself, because there I was thinking, you know, I've had this big fancy corporate career, and I'm in a room full of these people who are, some of them were one-man bands or these small home-based businesses. And I was like, you know, what are these guys going to teach me? But very quickly, I realized what an incredible place it was to be. And it became a lifeline, not just the customers that came from that group for my new business, but more the support and people doing this already. And the inspiration was the biggest thing. And that's why I think they're paying forward that experience to people that are starting new businesses, or maybe they're at a different phase. This was 15 years ago for me. So being able to be in a room of people where many of them were pretty much what me, but a couple of years on. So they'd come out of the corporate career, they'd started their own thing, they'd taken that brave step, they were doing it, and they were also there to go, and we can share what we know with you and be part of it. And ONLE has really sort of expanded as I came into that network, that sense of that friendly community of, look, you know, we're better together. The more of us that are thriving and successful at what we're doing, the better. And I actively choose to work with, wherever I can, people that I've met through networking groups, because it's a trusted community and it's another way of paying it forward. So first memory, I needed to get over myself. I guess probably the
Can
thing.
I just pick up? Because I think that's one of the most overlooked things in networking, I think, Joanne, isn't it? That we hear. You mentioned there that a lot of the people that I met that were now running businesses were recently corporate employees that had moved into running business. One of the first things about this kind of three-dimensional way of looking at networking, we speak to a lot of people that would go, I've gone to your networking group, it's full of business owners, I want corporates. Well, most of those people will know those corporate people.
Yep.
They're just not in it directly,
Right.
but you've just got to be open-minded enough to know that they can give you those introductions. So there's kind of loads of lessons in there, but I think that one was worth highlighting. So thank you.
I think we're going to talk a bit more about that later, actually, because
Definitely.
Fantastic
Let's
example.
Let's go to Chris. What's your early networking memories, Chris?
My earliest networking memories, my first BNI meeting. I remember getting multiple phone calls from someone trying to get me to go along to this thing. I'd networking before, I had no idea what it was. And I resisted it because someone was trying to convince me to go along to this meeting that I really didn't understand. And then coincidentally, a friend of mine, I say friend of mine, a few months later, inviting me to go along to this meeting that he was part of. Really, really good, because you just tip up at this thing. There's a whole group of people, and they just pass you business. It's that simple, you know. So I turned up at my first BNI meeting, and I thought it was really interesting because there's loads of people there that all seemed very friendly, drinking coffee, and they sit down and someone brought me a breakfast, and well, this is all very nice. And then they're all going around the room and they're all standing up one by one and telling me what they all do, which I found fascinating. Oh, this is really good. So these are the people that for some reason are going to be passing me business at some point, you know. And naively, you know, when the guy running the group turned around to me and said, "Okay, Chris, do you want to stand up and tell us all about your business?" I went, "Not really."
Yeah.
I was absolutely bricking it. I thought I had not prepared. I didn't know what to say, and you know, so I stood up and muffled a few words, and then sat down as quick as I could and drank a load of water. I was absolutely shaking, terrified. Horrible experience. But you know, I kind of got used to the idea, went away, thought about it, and there was still this thing in the back of my mind that these people are going to send me some business, which of course we all like some more business. And I went back the second week, and the next thing that kind of confused me a bit about this, I found it really, really counterintuitive. This thing of what they call giver's gain, which is if I give them business, they'll want to give it back to me. And I thought, well, hang on, I don't even know these people yet, and yet they're asking me to give a whole load of referrals to a bunch of people I don't know, and I've got to hope they're going to give me something back. And I thought, I'm not comfortable with that. It doesn't sit well. In the BNI meetings, they have these the positive contribution round where they talk about the referrals they're giving, and I saw it in action. And then I saw people giving it back and complimenting them and thanking them and giving them testimonials. And I thought, this is really good. I like this now. I've just got to learn to trust the people and get to know them a bit. And if I pass business and trust in the system, they'll give me business back. And of course, looking back now, 25 years later, that actually forms the entire basis of my business, because I've learned that the more I give out, the more I get back. And it can take a little while to get that process into your mind and get it moving, but it works, you know. And I know give an awful lot out to a lot of people, just helping them. Yeah, sure enough, stuff comes back to me in volume. So yeah, good for BNI. That's what I say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. None of us would be here if it wasn't for them. We need to remember that, don't we? Thank you, Chris. Thank you for sharing that. And over to you, Brian. Tell us about your first memory.
Yeah, you know, I was at a networking group, and it was a situation where we were going around the room to introduce ourselves. And at the time, I was just speaking. So I had started my business in 2001. There wasn't coaching, if there was, no one explained that to me, or it wasn't made available to me. So I was thinking you just go out and you speak, which was fine. And we were going around the room, and I remember thinking to myself, in my head, I was like, I'm a speaker. I need to really be a speaker because I'm a speaker. And it was interesting because it was like, it got to me, and it was this huge room, like 50 people. So I had to wait like legitimately a good 20 minutes. It was like being like a field goal kicker in American football with not just one timeout, but like two when you're waiting to kick the field goal. Anyway, so I come finally and I get there, and I didn't do it well. And I remember getting up and sitting down. I'm like, wow, that might be the worst, thing I've ever done in my life. And I think that the lesson I learned from that, and maybe something, with this here, is networking for me really does come down to mindset. We think of it in terms of skill set. And that's true. You have to be able to, I like to talk about creating a clear, consistent marketing message. I like to talk about symptoms of a referral. I like to talk about creating a formalized referral strategy. That's all skill set. But don't sleep on the mindset. I think for me in that particular situation, I got it in my own way. Like, I think if you had just came to me, if I was watching NBA League Pass, which they also didn't have at that time, but let's just say I was, okay? And they came to me and said, all right, Brian, you know, you're up next. I'd be like, wait, I need to watch the game. They're like, no, you're up next. So I need to watch the game. No, you're up next. I think I would just go right in, and I think I would have been better versus thinking in my own mind how I needed to show up. And I think for a lot of people, when you talk about ONLE, I think that that's really what makes this community great, is because you really can show up and be yourself without, and I'm not implying that other groups you can't, so we're clear, but you can show up and be yourself. And I think that that, for me, is actually a distinguishing factor for the community.
Love that. It's interesting, James, before we come to you to tell us yours, how, to be honest, all of us so far, James, you may be an anomaly here, but not necessarily a positive experience from the offset, you know? And I think that's what we have to remember. So, Brian, when you're talking about mindset, you have to push through this stuff. You know, we've been talking about focus this month with Lindsay Burden and, you know, the consistency and the keep going back through it. It's not always going to be fun. No, you're not always going to have the best time, but it's about being consistent and like you say, that clear message, going and enjoying yourself. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
It's quite an abstract skill, isn't it, networking? I don't know if there's any direct parallel with any other kind of business exercise practice that I can think of. And I think that's why, hopefully, if you're watching this, that you're reassured that even people, us, that are really good at networking and built businesses around it, it's a hard thing to learn and it does take time. My first experience kind of tees up this discussion. We're actually moving into the networking repair shop, because the question is, I'm just going to change this up on the screen here. This idea that, can I network to the room or through the room? This was my experience, my thinking, and it's why I've called it 2D versus 3D. I was so even probably one-dimensional the way I looked at networking, because my accountant said, you need more business, come to my B&I group. And I was like, I don't really want to, but I will. And I got up at 5 in the morning and I went to this thing and I did the typical thing. I pitched to everyone that I met. I didn't really have a discernible product that was suitable for that audience. But I just saw the people in that room, oh, they're professionals. Maybe they'll become my customer. And then there's two things there. One, they immediately didn't become my customer, so I didn't think it worked, so I didn't go back. It took me several months before I did go back and actually give it the time that it needed. And secondly, I wasn't thinking about the connections of their connections. I'm just going to say this one time and stop talking because my mouth's going to fall off. But Dunbar's number, this is the way you can start to think three-dimensionally about your networking. And all of our guests here have got great examples of this. Dunbar's number says that we all hold, on average, 150 meaningful connections in our life at any one time. So it goes, it then sounds, it's quite obvious that if you are a business person, a large percentage of those people will be in the business world. So the idea, why is that number important to networking? If you think I go to a networking group of 20 people, if I tell my story well, and I present myself well and I build credit with these people in the room, I have got the potential to reach 20 times 150 people. That's, by the way, we're not even talking about the connections of the connections of the connections, because networks grow like very weird little trees. You'll often find that one branch goes off and it keeps growing other branches. And then you suddenly realize that from one connection, you've built a whole networking branch. So yeah, I did it completely the wrong way. And it took me a long time to kind of work out how to do it. But we're going to go around the room because everyone's got their own example of this networking to the room, through the room. Chris, I'm going to come to you first because you've got a fantastic story and you've built your business around this networking to the room and beyond the room. What's your take on it, Chris?
Yeah, again, it can take a little while to sort of grasp the concept of it, really. But I now say to a lot of people, when everyone talks about BNI, and we've talked about it a number of times here, and we can't get away from the fact that it is the largest organisation of its type. but it doesn't suit all people and it doesn't suit every business. Fact of the matter is, it does give some really good pointers as to how to network properly and effectively. And what I learned fairly quickly is that in networking, if you want to receive business or referrals, you've got to make it easy for people to be able to do that. You know, it's your job to do that. It's not for other people to struggle. You've got to make it simple for them. And to me, networking through the room is exactly what you just said. It's a much bigger range of people, and the consequence of people in the room giving you business should be seen as a bonus. So many people talk about a networking group, whatever it may be, ONLE, BNI, whoever, and they will say, oh, well, yeah, I was looking at that group. I went there a couple of times, but there didn't seem to be many people there that want what I do. And you think you're just missing the point. That is not it. What you need to do is to find a group of friendly people that are well connected, and then make it easy for them to refer to you. And the way I look at BNI or any other networking group where you get an opportunity to present yourself is to look at it as you've got one opportunity on that occasion to educate your sales force. So I would say with BNI, you've got one meeting a week. The meeting normally lasts about 90 minutes or so, but you're going to get 60 seconds and you've got to tell those people who you are, what you do, and the kind of connections you're looking for. And be as specific as you can, because this is your sales team, right? You've got 10, 20, 30, 50 people in the room. It's your sales force. And once a week, you've got a meeting with your sales force, and you have an opportunity to tell them exactly what it is you're looking for, so they can go out and find the connections you need. And in return, obviously, you're going to do that back. And once you've got that process going and you are helping them as well, they clearly want to help you back because they feel they owe you one. But that's the key thing. You've got an opportunity to educate your sales team once a week, however often it may be.
So that's the 3D thinking, isn't it? You're looking beyond the room, you're building credit with those people. We'll come back to you, Chris, because I've got a specific question on that. But Brian, I mean, we need to state at this point, Brian's come into our network. He's done really good business. I'm sure you don't mind sharing some of the numbers, Brian. I'll ask you about that in a minute, but your strategy for networking, I've only really just understood this recently through our How to Gain Referrals course that you run with us, but this idea that you don't actually sell ever to the person that you're speaking directly to. Can you tell us a bit more about how you've succeeded networking online and a bit about that strategy, please?
Yeah, absolutely. One quick thing going back to Chris's point, and then I'll get to that one because they're related, if you don't mind, is the idea. I read a really interesting article, excuse me, a while back. It talks about that in business, we in the West approach it like a game of chess, where we are trying to get the whole thing is geared around getting the king, right? If you don't play chess, getting the king, and that's how you win. It turns out that our Eastern compatriots, they approach it like a game called Go, which is a little bit like what you have to do is you have to surround, it's the way I understand it, it's like little tablets, and you have like little rocks and pebbles, one's black, one's white. And the way that happens is if you can put a ring around the other, so if I'm black and the other person's white, if you can do a ring around the other, my black's around your white, those whites become black. And what happens is the more you win when it turns out that mathematically you have more, in this case, blacks than whites on the board. And I think that when you talk about networking, what Chris just mentioned, it really is, it's not a binary choice. It's not so direct. I think we in the West have a challenge with that personally. You know, I think we have a challenge. I think we're all about winning, which I am as well, but we think of it one-dimensionally and very linearly, which gets to your question, James, about the second point. I like to think of it as a 5-step process. And you alluded to the program we do on how to get more referrals through your online networking. It's a class that we put together for our ONLE constituency. We ask you for a little bit of money, but at the end of the day, it's not going to kill you. And what we do is we say, all right, listen, you want to be able to create a visible identity while networking. You want to do a one-to-one follow-up and have some interaction, do an intentional one-to-one. You want to have what I call a collaboration call. You then want to have an email introduction, and you want a template in that. And then last but not least, you want to be able to have a call with a would-be client. You're actually talking to the referral. And for me, you alluded to this as well, I've generated $30,000 worth of business in a 6-month period of time for that. That's not me talking, that's just me telling. Thank you. That's just me saying what actually happened. Maybe a smarter man gets 60,000. I don't know. My dog probably could get 10,000 from that. I don't know. I got 30. Okay. And that process of what it is it made it for me. I was less focused on the end results. A lot like golf. You know, I realized a while back, if I approached my life like I did a round of golf, I would actually be calmer, better, and probably more successful. So I did about 15 years ago. But it's a lot like golf where you focus on the process of meeting the people, following up, engaging, you know, symptoms of referral, what's a good referral for me, and the business comes. Versus I'm going to get the business, which back to my first point, I think is a Western way of looking at it. And I don't think that does us any favors. And that's why going back to ONLE again, that's why I think I love the collaboration in the community, because it allows us to be able to meet through some common goals and be resulting in positive business as well.
It takes the pressure off, doesn't it? Because you're not selling at the people that you're talking to. You're having conversations. You're explaining your offering and what you're looking for, and you can do the same in reverse. Pressure's off. It's important.
I think also, just to jump in on that point, networking has changed so much, particularly since the pandemic and, you know, the shift to online and the reach. We really are small fish in a big pond now. So the only way we can really get ourselves out there is to show our personality, to have more conversations with someone. It will probably take us longer to convert a paying client. Depends on what you sell, doesn't it? Depends on what your service is. But I don't think people have taken that into consideration. Like, if I want a web designer, I can think of 10 within ONLE really good web designers. The difference for me to be able to refer one over the other will come down to personality and how that personality matches the potential client. And that is what networking should be about, shouldn't it? Kind of what we're alluding to here.
Definitely. Joanne, I'm going to come to you because you've got a fantastic example. We haven't really said this, but one of the keys of networking is a specific ask. We always joke, don't we? Please don't ask, if you or anyone that you know wants this thing that I sell, I'd love a connection. That's so vague as to not really be worth saying. Right. You've kind of mastered this, haven't you, Joanne? Can you talk about that fantastic example?
I don't know if I've mastered it, but certainly I've got a few good examples, and I will come to that. But I also want to just share quickly, this word multi-hyphenated keeps cropping up for me a lot at the moment. And one of the reasons why I think ONLE is a perfect place for this, I'm actually probably the only person that's never been a member of BNI. I went along to one. Didn't suit me, didn't suit my personality, my business, my style, but ONLE does. And this word multi-hyphenated means all of us, most of us, have got multiple things that we do. You know, you could be a mum and a business owner and a gym fanatic. You could be a travel enthusiast. You know, you could have multiple businesses, multiple experiences. And what's fantastic about ONLE is that it allows you to bring all of that into the room and into the space. So when you're asking for what you're looking for, you are actually able to have a really open and transparent conversation with the people in the room who can share how and why they might be interested in that. Because there's three types of people in the 3 different rooms. There's me in the room with you in the networking and all the things that I know and I've done and I've experienced. There's also me in the room with everyone else that's in that networking group or room that I know quite well from having had one-to-ones with them. So what I might be able to do is recognize when someone's asking for something, you might not know. I had a chat the other day with this other person within this group, and I know that they might be looking for something similar or they might have that issue or challenge. So that's just other things that are happening you might not know about others in the room. Then it's like, who's in the next room? In my next room, the other side of this door is another office where my husband is also running a different business. And we've got some real examples at the moment of people in ONLE doing some work for my husband's business. And he comes and asks me, who do you know through networking? Because he knows that if there's something he needs, likely the likelihood is that I might be able to help him. So that's a really specific, personal, immediate connection. But then who else's room do I visit? Who else's room am I regularly in? People that are in my wider network, people I've worked with, friends in business that I might not ever have worked alongside, but I know what they do. And if you ask me a specific question, then there are people that I trust and they trust me. And like Brian said earlier, those referrals going backwards and forwards is like this lifeblood, this energy force in all of our businesses. And doesn't it feel good to do something good for someone else by going, you know, I can make a positive connection here? So I started to recognize this when I shifted from one business to another, and ONLE was the place that gave me the freedom to do that, because they weren't saying you can only be one thing in this room. So I could ask very specifically, who do you know in the US, talking to a US based network who works with the Enneagram as a consultant, as a, you know, it was quite a specific niche, because in the UK still, and certainly at that time, not many people even knew what the Enneagram was. A lot of people still don't. But in the US, I was then given a couple of very specific contacts, including people in the UK who we're now doing some business affiliation work with and some support. So having that really specific ask has made a real difference, because you just don't know. The key is to actually be really clear on what it is that you want to ask for. But that's the work that we do ourselves. And actually, I would always say, have a chat with Brian. He's really good at helping us find that.
It's such a good point, isn't it? I talk about, we play networking Guess Who, in that you see this all the time. People go to networking. We sometimes still get it, Kelly, where people say, well, who's going to be in the group? I want to know before I commit to coming along, who's going to be in the room. And they're playing networking Guess Who. What do I mean by that? They're basically going to go around the attendance sheet, and based on someone's name and job title, they are going to make a judgment about whether that person can help them or not. So they're basically clacking down the Guess Who tiles, and they end up with a couple standing. The question, the way to kind of break through that is to ask yourself this: do you know everything about everyone by their name and job title and who they work for? Do you know where they used to work? Do you know who their husband is? Do you know where, you know, who their best friend is, their previous career? You don't. So the only way to network sensibly and intelligently and not miss the obvious opportunities is to just treat people with respect, have conversations, and don't make those assumptions. And Joanne, I think that's a great example of doing just that.
Going to Joanne's point, and you were very specific. There's a few things working in that space, isn't there? Joanne is a great listener. She's a lovely personality. She's been in the network for a long time. People want to help her. So when she's specific, and I've got an idea that I might be able to help with that specifically, I'm going to go out of my way to help her. I recently asked for something quite niche. I asked for a UK-based accountant that deals with US accounting. I have never had so many introductions to somebody ever before for something that is quite niche, because I've been specific. And because you can really go into your memory banks, can't you? And you can really think about, oh gosh, yeah, no, who do I know? Or, oh, actually, I know somebody who runs a US business. I'll ask them who they. So you might not straight away understand or know who that person is, but people went out of their way to help me because I was doing the legwork for them. And I was saying, this is what I want. Who have you got that you could introduce me to? Because if you're a networker, I think all of you will agree with this, there is no better feeling than connecting good people. For no gain of my own whatsoever, I know all of you agree with this, the best feeling in the world is connecting good people.
Yeah, but you can't do that if they're not signposting it for you. If they're just saying, if you or anyone that you know wants this thing, it doesn't work. Let's go back to Chris, because I love the way you explain your brief in the Salesforce concept, Chris. It's really important. There's a piece that we must use to qualify this. What gives you... That sounds awful. What gives you the right? What do you have to do to earn the right to be able to brief a Salesforce? Because I can imagine walking into a room of people that don't know me, that's probably not going to go down too well. What do you have to do to lay those foundations?
I think this comes back to the thing I talked about previously, which is, to me, 3 or 4 key points of networking, which are first and first and foremost, don't be desperate. Okay, you don't want to go networking when you need business, because it's too late by then, and it's going to be too pushy, too salesy. You need to go to a networking event with the attitude of seeing how many people you can help. Because if you go there with that attitude and that manner, and that's the way you're talking to people, people will respect that and they will want to help you back. And once they see that you are not a taker, you are someone who's there to try and help the group, get to know them genuinely, try to find out how you can help them through proper conversations like the one-to-ones Brian mentioned, then you get permission to be able to talk to them about the kind of things that you're looking for. And in a way, you're kind of receiving an invitation from them because you have been that kind of mindset, that attitude, the nice kind of guy, you know, who's genuinely go, so who can I introduce you to? What can I do to help you? They go, oh, well, that's really helpful. Thanks ever so much. What can we do to help you? Then you've got an invitation to say, well, this is what you can do to help me. And
it's
that's
why it's difficult, Chris, isn't it, to dip in and out of networking. We see this a lot of people go, I'll get a free visit there and I'll go online to that meeting there, but you're not building that trust, are you? You're not building that familiarity and the right to ask for those things.
No, networking has got to be a thing you do regularly and consistently, you know, because I've said to a lot of people, you know, not everyone wants what you do. That's the first and foremost thing. So there's no earthly point running around with a big old box of business cards, handing a card to everyone going, do you want what I do? Because the bulk of them won't. And even those that might do probably don't want it right now. And if they do want it right now, they've never met you before. So why are they going to give it to you now? Right. But at some point in the future, as and when they do, or even better, going through the room, they meet someone who wants what you do, they've got to think of you first. And if you're not there, or you haven't built up that kind of rapport and relationship, it'll go to somebody else. So you've got to be regular, got to be consistent, got to be memorable, and be patient, you know, and it will come.
Definitely. Brian, it's a similar question for you. I mean, it's kind of you to kind of lay out that strategy that you use, but what would happen, for example, so you can have that strategy, what if you went to meetings and you were disengaged, you weren't really listening until it was your time to speak, and you made no effort to really build relationships? What happens to your strategy then?
A lot of things similar to when you decelerate with your golf swing. They're all bad. You know, you get people who are, they say that at worst case, it looks like that you're a taker. Best case, it looks like you might be somebody who maybe they'll look at in a pinch. I think what happens is, you know, one of the things that I like to talk about, and Chris alluded to this just now, is this conversation about good faith. You know, my brother and I talk about this a lot, usually in the context of our parents. And the idea is that when you have a good faith relationship, when you make a good faith effort, when you're able to show in good faith that you're willing to actually work with somebody, pass along an introduction, pass along a business, I think that, you know, it wins. And when you don't, it takes a little while. Like it takes a little while to figure it out, but eventually you realize that the league is like, I don't know if this person is really looking out for me or for us, and they wind up getting into a situation where they're less successful. And one of the things I'd like to talk about a lot as well is even the concept of warm market networking. If you don't mind indulging me for a quick second, because I think we've been talking about networking in terms of people who were just meeting, and that's fine. That's an excellent point. But there's an entire constituency of people who we've already met. But I think a lot of people sleep on that, where they say they go, they do these one-to-ones. Oh, well, it didn't work out, or blah, 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 blah. No. You know, you want to have some type of contact management system that helps you keep up with that. I personally use a system where I can just put tags for one-to-ones, and then I'll periodically go back to those individuals. Like we did that actually just the other day. We're doing a visitors event for our ONLE US contingent, and what did we do? We had 91 people on our list and who had visited in the past. All we did was send out an email. Hey, listen, we're having the visitors. If you'd like to come as our guest, you can. We got like, I think we're up to 8 now. out of, I said 90, but I think we only sent it out to 60. So like, there's different things that you can do. So I think when you look at, I think it was Chris who talked about this as well, or maybe it was James, talking about networking. It's almost like the Doctor Strange and the multiverse. There's different ways that you can do this. It's not just all, let me go to this group, let me do my message, let me send out follow-ups, and let me hope for the best. It's let me go out and show up in a way that I would want to be able to show up, okay? It's being able to engage in what I would call good faith activities. From there, it's actionalizing, that's not a word, I just made it up, into some type of process that makes sense that people can actually understand and you can leverage. And then from there, when it's all said and done, it's to circle back and warm market network with people who are doing that. And people ask me, how did you get the $30,000? Well, it's definitely because I'm not smarter, because I can tell you that. I went to Duke University and I almost didn't get out of there. There were a lot of smart kids, almost didn't make it, separate story. But it's the idea of having a process that you can latch onto. And when you focus on the process, the idea of who you are as a person and how you have to show up becomes less important. It's still important, but you don't have to be this overly outgoing person. You just have to be showing up in a manner that people know, like, and trust, going back to old school Dr. Meisner.
Yeah, but you've still got to listen, haven't you, and care about people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to get very far, are you? Excellent. Thank you, Brian. I'm going to come back round to Joanne, because we've kind of alluded to this as well. This specific ask, Joanne, have you got any? Because I know people really struggle with this, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, I just want business. What is the specific ask? Have you got any tips for that?
Well, as I say, I think it does take a bit of self-reflection and understanding what it is you're looking for and why. Potentially the people I was asking to be connected to could have been competitors in another scenario, but I was recognizing an opportunity where we could collaborate. And yeah, when you are really specific, and I notice it, I know I'm not always good at it, but I really recognize it when someone is very clear. It kind of clears this superhighway path rather than you wandering off around in the meadows going, oh, wouldn't that be lovely if someone somewhere liked a bit of that and I could blow some dandelion into the air, rather than going, right, this is the very clear direction I need to take. They've set their sat nav, they know where they're going, they know what they want, and actually it clears the clutter in my brain going, I don't need to spend time thinking, oh, I wonder this, I wonder that. I might know someone, I might not, but it will also get you thinking, and it might somehow, your brain and our subconscious is a very funny thing. You know how many times you're trying to remember a name or a thing or a person and you just don't in the moment, but a few weeks later someone will say something, you go, oh, you need to speak to so-and-so, and that's where it comes in. So I think it helps us as business owners to get clear on what we want. It helps the people we're talking to be clear about what we want. And it also, I think, is a really good model of good behavior for how to have a clear call to action in a meeting, because A, it keeps it clear and focused and quick, and B, it just helps everyone. But it's still that thing. My business has changed. My ideal client has changed and evolved. On paper, the people I'm talking to and working with now are not necessarily the people in the room at an ONLE meeting. However, I don't know what I don't know about the people in the room, and I don't know who they know. So it's still about showing up, because there could be that one golden nugget of a contact that happens. And even if it doesn't, and I'm, you know, the value in the network is about the business that is made, absolutely, but also the value of being in a community with people who, even if I'm working with bigger corporates, I'm not a big corporate, I'm still an independent business owner, and it's great to be around other people that relate to what I'm doing and I relate to what they're doing, and we can share advice and support. And that community is invaluable. I also think we can make the mistake when you're in the room of going, I now need to like every single post that everyone does and connect with everyone and be their friend and be their customer and all of that. No, we don't need to do that. Have some respect. Not everyone has to be your customer or you to be theirs. Not everyone has to be your really close friend or trusted advisor. However, the value of the few people that have become an essential part of my life business, personal, and moving forward. Like Kelly, I wasn't looking for that, but I've met some amazing people who actually the value of showing up has helped that evolve and be worthwhile. And it's a kind of a great place to go. It's not maybe all about what I need from this, but sometimes I'll get what I need, and other times maybe we can be giving back in a way that makes an impact on other people. And like Kelly said earlier, that feels good, doesn't it? So specific asks have lots of benefits, but keep showing up is the big thing.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. Thank you, all of you, actually. I think that's repaired, isn't it, Kelly? I think we fixed it.
I think we've done it. Yeah, I think we've given a lot of good information there, all three of you. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll let you all go. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, if you want to contact any of these fantastic people, you can find them in the chat. I don't know where you'd find them.
We'll put them in the chat. Joanne's even given fireworks then.
Yeah, that's an AI thing because I'm on a MacBook, so I can send you all sorts of, interesting little things. But yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Wow. Do you enjoy that?
I did enjoy that. Yeah, I mean, they're three of my favourite people. I'm a big lover of people, but those three are very close to my heart. So yeah,
it's
very much.
In, isn't it? I think if you're starting out with networking, it's like you could pick any one of the things that those people have said and kind of pursue that. So I do understand. I think it's just what's your sort of summary? I think for me, just treat people with respect. Go along to networking if you're starting out to listen and learn. And don't expect people to help you unless you're willing to help them. I think that's the...
I think, you can learn a lot from all three of the speakers, but I think what Joanne's just said about there's some real joy in just being part of something and knowing that you have a wealth of knowledge, support, friendship, camaraderie around you. And as a one-person business owner, being able to get into, because I do have a bit of a bugbear with people that want to get into the corporate world. They'll come along, they're a solopreneur, and they'll say, oh, it's no good because I need the real big bucks. And that can be achieved, as Joanne has proven, but you have to give me a reason as to why I would give you an into that contact. Joanne does that in bucket loads. She's so giving and supportive, and she listens and she's there for you. So, when that opportunity arises and you can see an in for somebody, it's going to go to someone like Joanne, isn't it? Because you truly believe in that person. So it is about give and take. Yeah, very much so.
Definitely. Excellent. Well, I think we've been going for 52 minutes. If anyone's watched all of this, we'll send you like a prize or something. That was amazing. But thank you, everyone who's joined us today. Thanks for your comments, and we'll see you again next time for the next Adventures in Networking. Goodbye.
Take care, everyone.